We like to hear about success, like say that again, as in happily ever after. We hope that things will stay worked out. Regrettably, people who get what they want may be saying within a few weeks, now what? Likewise, lottery tickets that make people feel that everyone has a chance, they do that, but research shows that winners seldom get the outcome they are looking for. Giving up their jobs leaves them with little to do and without people to be with as their friends become envious and or expect them to share their good fortune. The best example of having a better life after winning a lottery was the couple who spent their newfound wealth in carefully giving it away. In fact, we ourselves, and this I haven't written, I'm going to extemporize here, is that one of the purposes of our practice. The purpose of our practice is to become like that couple. Because when we are happy, really happy, true happy, we are truly satisfying our own nature by not thinking about our own nature, but by always giving things away. The only way, so we learn by sitting zazen, when we sit for many years, that really the only really thing that's really pleasurable in life is being like a bodhisattva. And this is not something that you do pick up things about this when you're over the years of meditation. But basically, this is how we all naturally are. We are all naturally giving in our ways. However, now I got to get back to my talk here. but actually, otherwise, however, we tend to be we can tend to be kind of materialistic about our practice, which of course is about ourselves, and that is a problem in itself. But anyway, such materialism can also affect meditators if they worry too much about going somewhere, getting somewhere. With no noticeable change in their lives, they can begin to wonder whether practice isn't a waste of time or whether they are suitable candidates for succeeding in it. But the point of life is living, and the point of meditation is meditating. Nevertheless, people tend to sit to get something from it, even though they have heard that it doesn't work that way. Someone once told me of having had an enlightenment experience and then spending the next 12 years in a Zen monastery, having to have a second one before giving up and leaving. So well, of course, usually people in groups like ours aren't getting attention to becoming enlightened. And of course, the teachers vary, and when the teachers vary, the group understanding varies too. But in the case of ourselves, that's worrying about meditation is actually worrying about yourself. And worrying about yourself is something we hope that we ultimately get rid of because it causes us so much discomfort. In ordinary life, I'm going back here, a materialistic way to get in trouble is by doing what we want to when our intelligence recommends against it. For example, instead of trying to be where we are, that is, in the present, we look to add something extra as if what we were doing was not good enough. We do the opposite. However, we do the opposite in meditation. Each time something comes up in our minds, we bring ourselves back to our breath, like a parent whose toddler has wandered off and who redirects it back to where it was without getting upset about doing what toddlers do. So We don't judge ourselves for what our thoughts are. We just say, nah, not now, thank you. And we go back to what we're doing, which is just being in the present. This repeated experience in sitting of having left where we are for something else that attracts us suggests that we should remember not to do that when we're off a cushion or chair, not to get distracted. Here's my rustle for you. Okay. What meditation reveals in us is an unexpected, an unexplored as yet life of being rather than a life of becoming. We really don't get much time in our ordinary life to live our life of being. Both of these things are necessary for us. Our life of being is actually showing us our nature, even though we may not express it at once at that time, of our Buddha nature. We are just being like the grass is growing. I'm thinking about outside of our house now. We have a small persimmon tree. We're waiting for the persimmons to get more orange, but the persimmon tree is not worried about that becoming. The persimmon tree is just being there. Okay? Indeed. So anyway, so life is life, and we are as much a part of it as anything else. Indeed, that is what makes us life as well, like the persimmon tree. It can even be said that we sit because our life wants us to. We are like anemones rocking in the movement of the water. Then we get up from our having practiced nowhere to go and nothing to do, and be where the things to do are always changing. There is a new problem every day, Suzuki Roshi said. What meditating also gives our life is ballast. I think you all know what that means, but I'll give you a definition anyway here. A ballast is the metal or stones that were once put in the bottom of the holds of ships to keep them from turning over in heavy seas. For a small sailboat, we have a keel. There is something called Darumadars, dolls in Japan. I think you've seen them because they're in America too. They're usually red and they have big eyes. And they're kind of like, and they're called Daruma dolls because that's just the Japanese word for Bodhidharma, who is always sitting. So, of course, Bodhidharma is the Indian monk who founded Zen and bringing Buddha's meditation to China. But those dolls have rounded bottoms with ballast in them. So that way, and they become a children's toy also, because that way children can knock them and they lean over, but they always come back. That way, they right themselves no matter how far pushed over they are. Sitting helps us be like that. We will be upended less in ordinary life if we meditate. Thank you. There goes less. I told a fib before. I did a double rustle there for you. Okay, let me put you on. Let me get, from my point of view, a bigger picture of you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Of those of you I can see, actually. Oh, hi, Susan. So anybody have any questions or comments? is am I losing out to hunger? Jane and I had breakfast early for us on Sundays today to get ready for being here.
Good question.
Okay.
Robert, I just noticed when I was doing nothing but being, my mind kept going, oh, I gotta go get my car fixed. Oh, I gotta go, I gotta get this job. Oh, I gotta go to, and I had to keep stopping myself and keep, now I'm resting. But it's just this nonstop, I gotta do this. And normally if I didn't have that opportunity to do nothing, I would be doing all these activities and not even thinking about it. Just okay, next activity, okay, next one. And it just really showed me how important just being instead of doing is so important. I mean, I transformed like my life just from learning to.
Yes, that's very, very good. And because the because when we recognize, when we're becoming is when we are having problems, which of course very natural. I mean, how can you say it's not natural? Because it's super natural. But the background, the background of our life is being as well. And being always presents a balance to the unbalanced side of becoming. Becoming is always changing, 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 changing. And that's natural life is changing. But we get carried away. Of course we do. I get carried away. But sometimes when you're in the midst of a real struggle of some type, if you remember to yourself that this is just, you don't have to go back to the cushion and calm down, which of course will calm you down, but it's kind of formal. But if you say to yourself, oh, that's not all, that background is always there. And as that was the point of Jane's topic today, part of it was just that, is also, don't get carried away. Don't lose out to the impulses, even if they're, in her case, she talked about it, even if they are not even if they don't start off as language, as thinking. But still, don't get carried away. Yeah. Yes, please. Oh, Rachel? Rachel?
Thank you, Peter. And while we were talking, I was thinking of Jane's and how there were counterpoints,
Yeah.
like chant. I mean, they were contra contrapunct. I won't say it right.
I know the
I
word.
know Joel knows what I'm talking about.
Joel knows the word. Yes, we know
Yeah.
that.
I can spell it. But because when Jane was talking silence and words and then language, and then sitting or meditating, the physical posture, and then regular life, which, you jump and walk a lot, but that it is the counterpoint. In other words, the ballast that you were talking about is the same ballast. It's like a living organism, body, speech, and mind. And the silence, the repose, they're all of a piece. And that ballast is the ballast for the living life. But I wanted to ask a question because once well, it was antique, so it had been drawn in, but it was a Daruma doll. It was paper mache, quite old. It was,
Yes, that's usually that's what they're made from. Yes, also.
but I was told that perhaps children get them at the New Year, and that you paint. There are some tradition where you paint the smile? I don't know if it's the beginning of the year, the end
It's
of the
the
year.
eyes. It's the
I
eyes.
wondered what
You
that
paint
is.
the eyes, but it may have changed. But in the past, paint the eyes.
The eyes.
The
Okay,
eye.
I was so curious and I couldn't remember. Why do you paint the eyes?
Well, actually, it's even worse because, it,
Worse.
but in politics, right?
Well,
In politics, if you win, then they'll this is in Japan, obviously.
Yeah.
There'll be one of these dolls, you know, and
Oh,
and they're all white. There's no eyes at all. There's no, there's
yeah.
no pupil, and you just go in there and you just dot it, and it stands for completion. But it has nothing to do with Buddhism whatsoever. But anyway, so therefore, yeah, I think in New Year's maybe children did put in the eyes.
but they put them in as a wish, and they paint one eye in, and then if the wish comes true,
Oh,
they
that's
paint
it.
the other
That's
eye
it.
in.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
oh, that's lovely.
So
What do you,
I
so I guess you have a one-eyed doll if you don't get your wish.
But if your wish comes true, as it were, then you paint in the other eye.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we have one in the house somewhere, and it has one eye in it so far for the last 20 years.
And we don't have one that goes like this either. It doesn't tip over. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Does it?
Yeah,
Does
it's paper mache.
Is it in there in the top
Yeah,
there?
it's the little one about that big.
Bring it in.
No, it's not in there. It's somewhere else.
Oh.
We used to have it on top.
Oh, I see. It's disappeared. Yeah.
That's why the one eye is still
Because
on.
it was so angry we didn't paint this eye, and it just left on us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yes. Anybody else have comments or
Does she have
anyway?
one?
Oh, yes, please. Yeah.
Susan, Susan's
Oh,
on.
Susan,
Yeah.
Susan.
Hello, everyone. I came in late, and so I'm being right here with you at this moment, and busy preparing for Rosh Hashanah tonight.
Oh,
So it's a pivotal time in my heart at this point. But I had two things in mind from what I just got to hear briefly. First, I'll respond to the Daruma doll, which I have to find because we have a new grandson. So some of these folks know I've had a granddaughter for 10 years, and now a decade later, we have a grandson. And
congratulations. That's wonderful.
I'm desperately looking for Dottie. So Dottie was the lovey doll for Hazel, 10-year-old one. We had Dottie and Rosie, and those dolls were so loved. They're of fabric stars, with a muslin face, and the face would get worn off. So I would just replace it and draw on a new face.
Oh,
Well, now as time went on and the fires came and she held up these dolls were evacuated, she started drawing on the faces herself. So we have this wonderful evolution of these dolls, which she doesn't relate to much anymore. But now we have a baby, so I'm looking for
yeah,
Dottie.
another chance. Yeah.
Can't find the manufacturer. Either I'll make it, or I bought one recently for him that isn't really suitable for that replacement of faces, which I think now has become pivotal. So that was very sweet to hear about the Daruma doll. The other thing I wanted to mention, that lovely idea of ballast and the comments on becoming and being. Lots of change this week in terms of relating to our aging body, and relating to the recent diagnoses of a good friend and the aspects of death. And at one point, I just stood up in the company of a couple of these friends and said, and they don't have this deep practice, but I just said, I'm so glad I have something else besides just this exterior, and besides this, deteriorating, aging body. So that was the ballast that I was acknowledging.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the way you clarified that. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm an early riser by nature, which makes it easy for me to do morning zazen. And if you are an early riser like myself, I recommend, of course, very much that if you can make the time, that you do a little meditation at the beginning of each day, because actually it actually gives you ballast in its own way. The metaphors, this metaphor is not extending properly because I can't give ballast to the Dharma. But anyway, in yourself, you put yourself in the right place when you're able to sit in the morning, right off in the beginning. It's hard for most people. It's hard for, but if you're lucky enough to be able to do that, I certainly recommend it. So put yourself in the right place when you get up, because you're starting out, using my metaphor in my talk today, you're starting out with being. Our way is to wake, well, in the case of early risers who don't need a coffee in the morning to get going, even though we take, you're right away, you're involved in becoming. What's in my day? What am I going to do today? One thing after the other, but you're planning and you're getting really already into the day, and you're getting carried away by your life. And so when you sit early in the morning, or any time, of course, is fine. You can. There's a movie that a lot of you have seen probably on TV. Well, not a movie, but a series called Severance. Was very popular this year on Apple TV. If you have that, it's about people who it puts out something in their body so that they don't know that their two lives don't connect. That is, they have a work life, and when they leave the door, they have no idea what they've done, and they go back and they go to their regular life. They're totally separate. This is the plot of the story. But if you sit in the evening, like some Zen centers do, like in the early evening, Suzuki Roshi always sat that way at 5 o'clock or 5:30. Up in San Francisco, where Jane and I came from, then you can do the same. You can do the same thing about leading your life of becoming, and when you're sitting, then you, without thinking about it, you will end up being back in your life of being. Then, of course, your life will continue, but it's, I know, for example, a very common thing was done. And my mother had a boyfriend. My father died a couple of 10 years after he had a boyfriend, and he'd worked in a factory, and like many people who do that, or the coal miners and stuff like that. And that's kind of male oriented here, but anyway, they'd go have they before going home. In the past, they'd go to a bar and they'd have a Boilermaker, I guess, which I never had in my life, where you put the shot glass into the beer, but you have that, and that kind of has the same kind of effect. But of course, then you have a small hangover afterward, but that's not so good either. Not really a hangover, but your body feels some difference with the sugar. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, trying to convince you to do, is to, of course, sit.
Boilermaker, and that's it.
Don't take the Boilermaker, sit. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Have any more questions? And if not, that's fine, of course.
I think we have room for one more.
My name is Bob, and I'm a shakuhachi player. So I'd like to open the distinction that Jay made between silence and sound, between silence and words, and say silence and all sounds. And so sometimes when I do a concert or play some music for a group, I say, don't listen to notes I'm playing, listen to the silence between the notes. In Japan, silence between the notes is called the ma. And so I said, this is a new way of listening to most people. And one woman came up afterwards. She said, oh, I tried to not to listen to your notes, but they were so beautiful, I couldn't help it.
You know, in
Is this Rob Gross?
no.
No, okay.
uh, in Japan, in painting, it's also, there's a special thing for like empty spaces in pictures. It's, they have a kind of equal importance in the picture. They're not like the picture is the form and then the empty space is whatever is left. It's like, it's calculated as much as the form, the empty space to the picture as well.
Yeah, so it's just like the idea when we're sitting in silence and we hear an airplane go over. It's just free energy. It's not like this is good, this is bad. It's like, so it's just the difference of the ballast, and it all works out. So thank you so much for your talk to both of you. That was most wonderful.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
very much.
and
We're very, very glad to be here. Even though Jane, as you can see from our faces, we're not young anymore. And so,
Speak for yourself.
and then this I always say I'm old, and Jane
He's
said,
always-
no,
He's always
no.
putting me in the same category. And I keep
That's
saying,
right.
no,
Even though she's a year older than me.
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I have a year's experience on you.
Anyway, so that's why we are still, our center is still closed, so our center is online, and we haven't opened yet because we're still suspect to getting in big trouble if we catch COVID because of our various conditions that you have when you get older.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that we didn't make it up. Maybe
Yeah.
next, if you ever invite us again, well, we'll be very happy to make the drive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you so much
Yeah,
for
sure.
listening and inviting us in the first place.